Thank you for joining us for our session of Reach for the Stars, Land in the Clouds. We are with the Oklahoma Family Network. We are a family-to-family health information center and parent-to-parent program and a federation chapter and a Family Voices chapter in Oklahoma. And we're just going to share with you guys today some tips and tricks and apps and things that we've implemented over the last 2 or 3 years just to help us be more foundational and streamline some of the work that we do with our staff and with our partners, and just trying to share some things that we've learned through this process. So, sound echo?
It's really not this bad. Sure.
Okay. So there are 3 main objectives we're going to cover today. I guess first we're going to do intro. Sorry, trying to get this together. So my name is Heather Pike. I'm the Associate Director of the Oklahoma Family Network.
And I'm Joni Bruce. I'm the Executive Director of Oklahoma Family Network.
And then I think online we have our Business Manager, Bonnie Lemons, and our Fundraising and Development Coordinator, Angela Donnelly. So there are three main objectives that we're going to go over today and hope you guys take away with you. And the first is to learn about tools and improve organizational administration and the need for systems integration. And then the second is just understand systems integration for fundraising and finance to streamline processes and improve efficiency. And then the third thing we're going to show you guys is just how we tied all this together to develop our HRSA compliant financial P&Ps. So the overall thing that we wanted to accomplish with this was really just to work smarter, not harder, and just figure out what apps and tools were out there available for us as a nonprofit organization, an organization that we could use just to streamline those processes. And again, it's not always easy. There's always going to be bumps in the road and learning it that comes along with that. But we're going to share some of the good, the bad, and the ugly with you guys today.
Where does it point at? This to there we go.
Okay. So this is just a snapshot of some of the apps and some of the tools that we've utilized through this process. You'll see many that you guys probably use in your organizations on a daily basis, such as Canva, maybe QuickBooks, PayPal, YouTube, Google, Doodle, Hoova, which if you weren't familiar with before this conference, hopefully you've gotten familiar with that app as well. And we're going to just talk a little bit about some of these, but we wanted to give you just a screenshot of just some of the tools that we've used as a visual.
And these slides are online, so you can download them.
And you won't hear an echo when you go through them yourself. Sorry, guys, this is
hard
driving me
for
crazy.
You want to be up here. I'm trying to talk.
I'll switch roles with anyone at this point. In everything that we do, we utilize something what we call the Lifecourse tools. It's Charting the Lifecourse. If you're not familiar, I would encourage you guys to go check out Charting the Lifecourse. This tool we're going to talk about today, and I'm going to show you, is what we call the star chart. And you can use it in many different ways. You can use it with an individual. You can use it to help solve a problem. But we just pulled together all the pieces that we were trying to implement and figure out how all the pieces work together. Again, the ultimate goal being to work smarter, not harder. So the first thing we look at within the star chart is strengths and assets. So within our organization, some of our strengths and assets were our OFN board of directors. We are a nonprofit organization. We have a really strong board who bring to the table lots of different life experiences from their profession, from their personal experience. And so utilizing them as one of our strengths and assets, as well as a strategic plan that we developed with our board of directors, with the Oklahoma Center for Nonprofits. And every state has a Center for Nonprofits. So I would encourage you, if you are a nonprofit organization, to find out who that is in your state and figure out how you can work for them and take advantage of tools and things that they already have for nonprofit organizations. Another strength we had is we have a really great business manager with lots of experience, not only within our network, but experience that she brought to the table in other roles. And I referred to her doing this presentation a few weeks ago as being a black and white person, like it's wrong or it's right. And it was funny because we had a conversation later and she was like, I don't really see myself that way. But she keeps us in line and she keeps us accountable and makes sure that we're following those best practices that we have set for our organization. And then we also transitioned one of our staff from a family support partner to a fundraising and development coordinator as a new position. And Angela Donnelly's on here and she's going to share some of that with you, hopefully, if we can get the technology to work. And then another strength within our organization is just our staff and their willingness to learn new things and to adapt and do what? That would help.
That's where the feedback is
Okay.
Okay.
And then when we're ready for them to talk, you just call on Angela and Bonnie and then they show
Okay.
Okay.
you and we'll fix it.
Okay. We will hope that fixes our echo. No problem. So another piece of the star chart is looking at technology. And a lot of our presentation today entails technology. We're going to talk about some of the tools that we've used with our staff and to implement some of these things that we've changed, especially during COVID. COVID kind of forced us to really look at our processes and how we were doing things and kind of like lit a little fire under us to make us kind of look into those and figure out how we could start utilizing some of those. One of those things is Harvest. It is a time tracking and expense tracking tool that you can use for staff. There is a cost with that, but as a nonprofit organization, it has been a lifesaver for us to be able to use that with our staff. We have a little over 20, what do we have, 22 people now, I think, on staff within our organization. And this is just a place they can keep track of time and expenses. You can set it up specific to your organization with funding streams and all kinds of billable type things that are specific for how you need to track stuff. And then the next thing is QuickBooks Online and remote baking. And then we implemented Kindful, which is a fundraising tool and application that Angela has gotten very familiar with, which also has a text to give feature on that. Eventbrite, I'm sure a lot of you that put on conferences and trainings and things like that are used to using Eventbrite. If you don't know about it as an organization, I would encourage you to look into that as well. SurveyMonkey, Google for Nonprofits, the list goes on and on as far as technology goes. Another piece of the star chart is looking at relationships. So as we were just starting out in this process, it was really important for us to recognize who we already knew that had done some of these types of things. One of those was instrumental in us looking into Harvest was Oklahoma Center for Nonprofits, because that's how they were tracking their time and expenses for their staff. And he kind of showed us how that worked. And then we were able to really look into that for ourselves and our organization. So that relationship with him and the input and the experience provided by him was instrumental in us implementing that. Then we also had a family leader within our organization who was a professional with QuickBooks Online expertise and just organizational structure. Her expertise was going into organizations and really kind of helping them look at their overall system and figuring out ways that different tools and different apps could talk to each other to improve that function. And then she also was instrumental in helping us set up our QBO, our QuickBooks Online, so we could track things the way we wanted to track it for our funders as well as for ourselves and our spending and our contracts and things like that. And then just other professional relationships that we had with people in our community already. So an accountant, we have someone that helps us prepare our taxes and looks at all of that for us on an annual, if not more frequent basis. An auditor, attorneys, we have board members, that have that expertise and experience, as well as past board members. And then, a relationship with where we have our bank account was instrumental in helping us set up that online banking and figuring that out and making that easier for us. And then just our OFN staff and board members that I've already mentioned. And then also the utilization of agency members and agency leaders and other organizational leaders that have experience with just running an organization and picking their brains. The next piece of the star that we look at is just what's in our community that we access. I mentioned the Oklahoma Center for Nonprofits. That is a big one. Our accounting firm, our audit firm, our bank. Just learning and sharing from community partners and other organizations that are a part of our community and the work that we do. The last thing we want to talk about in a star chart is looking at what you may be eligible for. So as a nonprofit organization, oftentimes we are eligible for discounts of things like our Google account. Many of the tools still have a little bit of a cost associated with them, but as a nonprofit, sometimes there are discounts that go along with that. And typically you just have to ask about it and then provide your 501c3 documentation to receive that discount. So if you are a nonprofit, take advantage of those kinds of things because it really does help save. And then there's also sometimes grants available to nonprofits to implement some of these tools and things like that. And then TechSoup is also a great resource for nonprofit organizations. QuickBooks Online has a discount for nonprofits, and then Microsoft 365, just to give you guys a few examples. So when we pull all of that together and look at all those pieces that we wanted to look at and needed to access to make this happen, we put them all together in this star chart. And again, this presentation is online, and I would encourage you guys to go to Charting the Lifecourse tools to kind of look at different examples of ways people have used this tool in lots of different situations. So this is, I believe, Angela or Bonnie, if they're online.
Bonnie. So Bonnie's going to speak up now, I think. Bonnie, can you unmute?
Yes. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Okay. We started our journey with the standalone technology that you see here. The problem is that they don't work together and they don't connect with each other.
Does she want you to advance?
Can you still hear me?
We can.
Okay. I got a message that someone had muted me. Could you go back to the previous slide, please?
Sure.
Thank you. The problem was that these technologies required a manual process to even initiate an automated task. For example, Paycom, which is our third-party payroll administrator, required Excel spreadsheets that were prepared for the payroll prior to manual data entry. QuickBooks Desktop, as well as PayPal and the PayPal card reader, also required manual data entry. So you can go to the next slide. The problem was that, simply put, we had manual processes with just a few automated components thrown in. And as Heather showed you on our star chart, we had a lot of resources at our disposal, but the technology was all driven by manual processes. So it was inefficient, time-consuming, and it had a high risk of error. Next slide. What we needed were automated processes with a manual component. So the family leader we contracted had experience with just that, and she guided us through the transition. Next slide. The most important and game-changing recommendation she made was to move from QuickBooks Desktop to QuickBooks Online. QBO was the starting point for systems integration because it connected our bank and our credit card accounts to the system and allowed us to integrate with other web-based systems such as our CRM, which we connected just this year. So we began the transition with a redesign and a streamlining of our chart of accounts in QuickBooks. This eliminated numerous parent and expired accounts we had had in desktop, and it reduced the number of sub-accounts. So you can see here that this is just a snapshot of our revised chart of accounts. It's not our entire COA, but you can see we have parent accounts and a few sub-accounts rather than a very lengthy list that we had previously. Next slide. The next thing we did was to track our different revenue streams within the same funder through our product and service list versus our COA. You should never track your income and expenses through your chart of accounts. It should always be done through your product and service list. So this kept our COA short, and the product and services that you see here are only the parent accounts. And you can see we only have about 7 or 8 parent accounts. Then we create sub-accounts as they're needed. Next slide. Finally, we streamlined our class list. In QuickBooks Desktop, we had 90, that's 90 different classes. This now is our entire class list. It's 3 parent classes and 15 subclasses. So our 3 classes are fundraising, general and admin, and programs. The programs class contains our 3 buckets of support as subclasses, and they are advocacy and leadership, emotional and family support, and information and training. So classes are called campaigns in our CRM, and QBO and Kindful sync according to this list. Every time or expense entry in QBO is classed by one of these classes or subclasses. Next slide. The Harvest project list, well, Harvest is our time and expense keeping app, as Heather told you, and it categorizes every entry according to our class list, which is called projects in Harvest. So Harvest projects correlate to campaigns in Kindful, which correlates to classes in QBO. So we use the same class list in all 3 systems. 4 projects are assigned to each funder, as you see here. And when time or expenses or an expense is entered in Harvest, the employee clicks on the project drop menu and selects the appropriate project. This facilitates assigning the correct funding stream to the transaction in QBO. Next slide, please. The Harvest Detailed Time Report pulls all time recorded within a specified time period, and it sorts it according to the employee, the project, the client, or the task. It can then be exported to Excel for further analysis or exported as a PDF to include with an invoice to a funder, as a CSV to upload to another system, or even to the Google Drive. Next slide. Exporting the detailed time report from Harvest to Excel and analyzing the payroll allows us to enter the payroll by funder and project in the QBO journal, as you see here. So you can see on the far right, we have wages, which is the category. And then you can see on the far left, we have the project or the product/service. And then in the column next to that, just to the left of that, we have the funder. Next slide, please. The Harvest Detailed Expense Report, like the time report, is prepared for a specified time period, and it's sorted accordingly, just like the detailed time report was. You can then export it in the different formats that are shown in the drop menu there. And this is helpful when preparing monthly staff expense reimbursements or reconciling credit card statements. Next slide. So receipts for all expenses are uploaded to Harvest when the expense is entered, and this allows for the supervisor to review the expense and receipt and to approve it, and it securely stores them for future reference. Harvest houses expenses and receipts for credit and debit cards too. Next slide. The QBO banking window provides a live feed for bank and credit card transactions. The employee making the purchase enters the transaction in Harvest, selects the appropriate funder and project, and attaches the receipt. Then once the transaction posts to the bank or the credit card, it automatically imports it into the QBO banking window. So you can see the imported transaction in the lower portion of the screen. And this was on one of our credit card accounts. Next slide, please. Once the transaction appears in the banking window, it's booked according to the funder, project, and category that was assigned in Harvest. So transactions are booked in real time with just a few mouse clicks. No real data entry is required. So this is a huge time saver because it reduces manual data entry. And it clearly separates duties, allowing for division of tasks between the admin staff, which means a better segregation of duties. And it facilitates the preparation of job descriptions and process manuals, since the task can be broken into easily so that no one's consuming and no person owns the entire process. So one person prepares detailed expense, another books the transactions and another analyze and reconcile with QBO. Costs can be performed remotely since they're web-based applications. They can be accessed anywhere at any time, which allows for many of the tasks to be performed by different individuals simultaneously. And I think Angela is now going to take over.
Yes. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. So as Bonnie said, we were in a time of growth and organization at OFN. We now have a redesigned website. We've shifted to remote online banking applications, have gotten all our staff using Google Suite so we can communicate better between ourselves. And with these new procedures and applications, for example, the integrations of payment processors such as Square onto our website and other areas, the most important things that we have to remember are to integrate, revise, and tweak, because you're going to be doing that a lot. So things rarely go smoothly the first time. So keep that in mind when you're experiencing these growing pains. Next slide. When we began looking into CRMs that would work for us, we met with a few different companies who were able to show us what their systems could do and how that might work for us. We looked into eTapestry, Donor Perfect, Neon, Salesforce, since we already use that for other things, and Kindful. Some other software packages. The systems had a wide range of integrations and capabilities, along with a range of software costs. Our area of focus and the main thing we wanted to accomplish in a CRM was the ability to sync our CRM with QBO, but we also wanted it to have real-time data and wanted the system to be easy to use for staff and donors, and it needed to fit easily into the new website with the ability to make changes, update links by staff and not an outside web contractor, which is just another added expense, and the basic ability to have a better grasp on donors and donor management, who they are, who they tend to donate to, how much they usually donate, just so we could support our goal better of expanding fundraising efforts so we had more flexibility in our funding to support families and their needs. Next slide. So after many Zoom presentations to both staff and board members, we ultimately decided on Kindful. The system is cloud-based, so we can access it anywhere without specific software being tied to a specific person's computer. There are integrations for things that we already use and we already have accounts for, such as Stripe, PayPal, and Square. And then with the addition of the Bloomerang payment system, we can accept ACH payments. Kindful wasn't the cheapest CRM, but it was also not as big of an expense or an investment as, for example, a donor perfect system was. And this being our first step into the CRM world and targeted fundraising efforts, the Kindful system worked for us and it's easy to use and meets our needs without breaking the bank. Next slide. The next few slides will give you just an idea of what the system looks like and some of the key features we use on a daily basis. This is the system's homepage, which just gives you an overview of donor numbers, a running total of donations that have come in, and a way to assign tasks to different individuals. For example, if a large donation came in and I wanted Joni to see that so she could reach out and thank a donor personally, I could do that task here. Next slide. This is an example of just a quick report you can create if you wanted to show your board of directors or put a report in a donor letter on how specific fundraising event did this year versus years past. It can also show which of your fundraisers are your best money makers. So you can target those to increase the marketing around them and bring in new donors. You can group your donors by the event they donated to or attended, or by what specific interest they might have, such as NICU support, autism support, behavioral health, things like that. Next slide. And this is just a handful of the integrations Kindful can connect with. There are 3 or 4 pages of them available, so this is just one little snippet. The ones that we have connected are Square, QuickBooks Online, MailChimp. Some of the other ones that we're looking into connecting are online auction software apps and Eventbrite. One of my favorite features to use, I'm going to use it all the time, is the text to give feature. This has come in really handy and has been great at fundraising events such as awareness walks, our golf tournament, and most recently our 25th anniversary celebration. Next slide. Since one of our biggest needs was integrating our CRM with QuickBooks, we really needed to have a good grasp on how the systems work together. And since I run the CRM and Bonnie runs all our accounting, we have to be in constant contact with each other while creating new events, campaigns, and funding streams. If I create something that isn't categorized correctly in my system, when it migrates over to QBO, it could throw our entire accounting system off. So having the dedicated staff and communication is key to these systems working and the integrations being successful. There is a learning curve, and it definitely didn't happen overnight. It's taken us the better part of a year, I think, for Bonnie and I to get in a good groove to understand enough about both systems so that we can use them and make sure we're getting the most out of both systems that we can. And I know everyone's interested in cost. Technology can be pricey, and the saying "you get what you pay for" can be very true. Kindful costs us around $1,900 a year, and it can go up from there depending on how many contacts you have and how many extra features you want to throw on, the top of that. So for fundraising or online payments, and then you must factor in the fees associated with running credit cards through Stripe or PayPal or whatever processor you might use. So I think another thing to take into consideration is the saying that time is money. So saving so much time on these different integrations that we've put into place really has overall saved us money, working hours, and staff time. So you just have to look at it and see if it was worth it for you. And for us, it definitely was. Next slide. So I think there's always pros and cons in any project that you have. And so some of the pros to us were that it really saved time, like you heard Bonnie talk about, in data entry and procedures. It cut down that time, by 2/3 and made that job quite a bit easier. Some of the cons I know on my end were that all systems have limitations. We've had to be creative in some of the ways that we work things. And as we've also seen here today, technology can be glitchy and you just never know what you're going to get, right? So just keeping that in mind and going with the flow and just, navigating all those services can be tricky. So keep that in mind when integrating new programs and technology. And now I think we'll turn it back over to Joni.
Not really good at sitting and talking. So just curiously, how many of you have use QuickBooks Online? Too many of you? I'm going to get out of this light so I can. So some of you are already using that. And in essence, what we were trying to do is pull all of our systems together. Are any of you using a timekeeping tool? This is really awful. Can we switch to this mic? It's really annoying. No, you can't hear me if I turn. Can we make this light? Maybe it already was. Let's see if this is, it's not better. Oh. Okay, I think this mic is back on. Okay, we'll just try to deal with this. Sorry, I have light in my eyes and I feel like I have a diagnosis of schizophrenia right now. I think you all probably feel the same way. So some of you use QuickBooks Online. We added Harvest, which is our timekeeping tool, because we were using Excel spreadsheets and that was our timesheet. And there was so much room for error. And we have, gosh, probably 10 funding streams that we try to keep everyone separated by. And I'm on all of them. Heather's on all of them. Bonnie's on all of them. But we have other staff that may just be on 2 or 3. But what we found was if we gave the person doing the work the ability to mark which funding stream that they were working on, then we had a lot more accurate accounting and also invoicing. Because otherwise, our bookkeeping people had to guess what funding stream the person's description was describing. So, boy, this is really hard. And then secondly, we actually had 2 HRSA audits a few years ago, and they were every other year for 3 years. And it actually ended up being a really good experience. And what the HRSA auditor said was, she wished that that all of the Family to Family Health Information Centers, which is one of our federal grants, she wished that everyone had our financial PMP. So we thought, well, one thing we could do is do a session like this that shows how we've set up a delegation of work to try to segregate so that not the same people were doing similar work, but then also to keep our staff safe as well as the organization, because you have segregation of duties. And so available to you today, uploaded in the app is our financial PMP, and we've removed all of our name from it. So you take that and use it, at least according to HRSA. They think the way we've delegated duties and the way that we've written up policies and procedures is really helpful. So you guys may want to download that and maybe compare it to yours. I will tell you, it's a little hard sometimes following it because it takes a lot of people to be able to separate that. That was one of the reasons we went to online banking. We rarely write a paper check. And that started during COVID because Bonnie lived 45 minutes from Heather and me. And the bank was, excuse me, 30 to 45 minutes away for her. So if she made a deposit, it would take an hour and a half or 2 hours. So once we went to scanning checks and depositing them, we didn't need to take them 45 minutes away to Bonnie. we actually have a local staff member who actually is doing those deposits. And that's been really helpful. I think Harvest is the other thing that's been really helpful. And if you would like, as we finish, I'll be glad to show you on my phone. Staff can use Harvest either on their desktop or laptop, or they can use it on their tablet. They can use it on their cell phone. And the benefit of that is they're putting their time in a live, at the moment that they're doing the work. And then that way, our staff are very honest. And what they will do is, oh, I don't remember what I did that half a day. So they just wouldn't turn in their time because they couldn't remember for certain what they did. But when you can put your time in on your cell phone, instead of having to wait until you get home and put it on your laptop, you can be more, not only efficient, but also more accurate. And what we found is some of our staff actually realized they were working more hours than what they realized. The other thing is your 990 can be a great fundraising tool for you. And Harvest allowed us to separate out the type of work we were doing and who we were doing it for. And then you can accurately give that information on your 990. I think I've already covered most of this. Just, that separation of duties and segregation of labors. We have one person that does deposits, and that person, if you're doing it according to government accounting principles, you should not have the person who actually balances your checkbook, should not be the person who makes the deposits, and they should not be the people who sign the checks. And so you start thinking about, when you're a small nonprofit, how in the world do you do that? So the way we have it set up is Heather and Bonnie will put in checks into the banking window, and then Heather and I can go in and approve them. And that can either be for a check, which takes about a week for the bank to mail, or it can be an ACH where it goes directly in the person's account. The impetus for the other tools, because we've talked a lot about the financial tools, but I'll tell you, Google for nonprofits, do very many of you use it? Google for nonprofits, you need to check into it. Not only is it free emails, right, Heather? It's free emails, but my goodness, it gives you access to Google Documents. And how many of you provide stipends to youth or parents for leadership activities, or you have contractors? We have Google Documents set up, and then if someone's on a meeting with us, we show the QR code or the link in the chat. They can click on it, fill out the stipend form in Google Forms, and then that goes into an Excel file for us. And then we can either send them a gift card for their leadership stipend, or we can do an ACH if they want it done that way. And so we've really streamlined a lot of the work that we've done, even through Google Forms. You can also use Google Forms in lieu of SurveyMonkey. We were running into issues that SurveyMonkey, we could only have 3 people logged in at a time. If someone was on vacation and they left logged in, and then you had 2 other people working on it, and then you had another person that needed in, it was very inconvenient. So we've actually shifted all of our evaluations into Google Forms, and then we create QR codes. And then on the last slide, we'll just put that QR code on there, and then the people can go in and do their evaluations. And then you can also put just a regular link in the chat so they can click on that chat. And I think you'll find that you'll get a lot more feedback, because people are more willing to do the evaluations when you make it easy. We totally rebranded this year. This is our 25th year of serving families. And we decided it was time for a new look. And so we totally rebranded. And as a part of that was the website. We've noticed a marked increase of referrals from hospital social workers from our online platform through our website. And that's been great. Families can find us online. They can do a self-referral, or professionals can actually input referrals, either way. But probably the biggest impetus is we were just trying to become more efficient and making it easier on our staff, make sure that they're really getting paid for the time that they're working, and even professionalize our look. So here's just some advice from us. Take your time. When we were looking at the CRM, Angela and I got sick of having to, I mean, we did Zoom after Zoom after Zoom after Zoom, and they all started, looking the same. So she had a spreadsheet, and we had certain things that we really wanted. And so we would just do check boxes. And then that's how we finally kind of narrowed it down to Kindful. We didn't have $60,000. If you use Blackbot and some of those bigger companies, you can spend $70,000 to $100,000 just setting up the system because you need a consultant to show you how to do it. We needed ease of use. Angela's pretty techie. I would not be very techie, but we all needed to be able to know how to use it so we could be effective and efficient. The second thing is finding content experts, and they might be where you least expect it. If you don't know about your Center for Nonprofits in your state, I highly encourage you to check into them. In our state, I think we pay a couple $100 a year, but then we can attend some sessions free and then other sessions for just a much reduced rate. But we've done strategic planning with them. They had a grant that we were able to get that actually paid for our strategic planning. And then we actually used one of their consultants to help us not only continue that strategic planning, but then move it forward. And he's actually going to work with us for the third time in January to refresh our strategic planning. And that's really helpful. He's the one that told us about Harvest. He actually told us about 2 or 3 different options, but Harvest seemed to meet our needs the best. And then just save up and buy the best that you can. We talk to a lot of other nonprofits and ask them on every single one of these. And I'll tell you, on QuickBooks Online, almost every single person that we talked to told us to not do it because we wouldn't be able to run the reports that we needed. But that's where our content expert came into play. We had a family leader that was very active with our organization, and we found out what her role in life was, what her real job was. And she had this incredible knowledge in QuickBooks Online, and she assured us that she could create reports within QuickBooks that could be kind of memorized, and then all you have to do is change the parameters, and that she could create any report at all that we need. And I think that Bonnie's found that that's the case. So this is a list of resources. I mean, you could take a picture of this, but like I mentioned earlier, this slide deck is on the app, but these are probably the ones that we use the most. Do you have questions about any of these? Yes. Do I use Canva? Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yes. That's how we created this presentation. And one thing that we learned not very long ago is we kept thinking you could only download the PowerPoint presentations in a PDF. We finally learned when you hit the More button, you can download it into a PowerPoint. So it makes it a little easier. But yeah, Canva is great. We use it for the newsletter. We use it for flyers, for trainings, invitations, website. I mean, we've created so much. People think we're really creative, but we just steal all the ideas out of Canva. So if you don't use Canva, there is a free version. We actually paid because we have done so much with our website, and it's not even very much. There's a small annual fee that we pay now. But it's very well worth it. Any other? Yes. Right.
So what
Right. So what QR code generator do we use?
We just use whatever's free.
Yeah, we just
Like,
go
we just-
online.
we
Yeah.
just-
And in Canva, it'll create a QR code for you. You just put the link in there and they'll generate it. And there's no cost. Canva is CANVA. Mhm. That's the easiest way. Is that what you were going to say? I'm sorry, did you say for Center for Nonprofits? Oh, the annual fee for Canva.
I don't recall, but
Bonnie,
it's
do you remember? I want to say it's maybe $100. Yeah. Oh, so Canva has just started a grant program for nonprofits so that even their paid version is either way less or free. Okay. Well, we need to check into that. Yeah.
so different. They're
Yeah.
totally different. Yeah. So Canva is just a place where you can create lots of graphics and images and presentations and things like that. And then Constant Contact would be your email, distribution system for emails and things like that. For emails, Angela uses, we use vertical response through our Salesforce application, but then Angela also has access to another one to email just donors and keep those separate from families and contacts in our database.
Joni, Canva was just under $120 a year for the last 2 years.
Oh, nice. Yeah, Constant Contact isn't great. And a lot of times, like our vertical response is free for us to use up to 10,000 emails a month because we're a nonprofit. So I don't know if Constant Contact has something like that, but you might look into it if you're a nonprofit. That might be a cost saver for you as well.
Heather, we use MailChimp because it connects to
MailChimp,
Kindle,
yeah,
and
that's
we'll
what I thought.
filter
So
those.
MailChimp does the donors. And when you split it like that, it sounds kind of cumbersome. But what it does is it keeps you from having to pay a fee. Because if you get too many donors, then you have to start paying. And we're cheap, believe me. We do everything free that we can or get it donated or in kind. Any other questions? Yes. Okay, so the question is, is the 10,000 emails so that virtual response is free? Is it for 10,000 emails or for 10,000 recipients? And the answer is 10,000 emails. That's a lot of emails. We don't email as much as we used to. We're using Facebook and we use social media a lot more. People just don't read emails anymore. We could tell if they didn't open them and you're just like, where are we sending them? No one's reading them. So seems like they pay attention to social media a lot more. We have, I think 7 or 8, well, more than that, Facebook pages, all different ones. Some of them are behavioral health for a certain region. One of them is just OFN in general. We have staff that have like a bereavement group for families who have lost a child because of cancer. We have NICU support groups. We have Hispanic support groups. So each of them has their own Facebook group, and then that way they can run Facebook Live. They can post things that are specific to that population, and that works pretty well. And all of that's free. Any other questions? Apologize for the technical difficulties. Okay, one more question. We use Salesforce as our data collection. Nothing right now, virtual response.
Yeah, so we integrate vertical response, and we're also in the process right now. We were trying to use Ninja Forms to integrate our online referral forms with Salesforce, so it would just feed into Salesforce. We've ran into some challenges with Ninja Forms because of the version of Salesforce we're using. So I'm in the process right now of exploring some other options for that. But eventually our online, hopefully by the end of this year, our online referral form will dump into Salesforce. So we won't have any data entry involved with that.
Yeah, I just met with our contractor who runs our Salesforce, and she told me the name of a different tool, and I don't even remember what it is now, but there is something that will integrate so that, I mean, because really when you think about it, if someone goes online and refers themselves or makes a referral, if it would just go into our data system automatically, you just save someone time from having to type that into the system, which is what we've been doing. Like Heather said, hopefully we'll have that figured out by the end of the year. And I will tell you right now, she's a lot more techie than I am. We are not tech gurus. She's tech savvy, I'm not. But she just has to sit down and teach me how to do everything. But I'm a hands-on learner. Don't make me watch a video. Just show me how to do it. But yes.
So what's the difference? I'm a member of TechSoup. So what's the difference between
We got our QuickBooks Online from TechSoup, but we used to buy our old QuickBooks Desktop from TechSoup, but now we buy the QuickBooks Online from TechSoup. It is much less. I mean, it's several $100s to buy QuickBooks Online, but through TechSoup, I think it was $75. So it's a huge, huge savings. And if you are a business buying Google, you know, what we get through Google for nonprofits, you would pay $500 or $1,000 a year, and it's free. It's amazing. And I can't say enough about Google Forms. I mean, we dumped our what was it called? SurveyMonkey. I mean, there is absolutely no reason to use SurveyMonkey anymore at all. Google Forms I am dumb as dirt, and I figured out how to use it. I had to copy somebody else's, but then once I did that, I figured it out. It's great. And then QR codes are awesome. If you're doing an online training, which is primarily what we're doing right now, you can put that QR code up, and then the easier you can make an evaluation, the more apt people are going to use it. Any other questions? If you'd like to see what Harvest looks like on a phone, I'd be glad to show you mine. So thank you for your attention, and apologize for the echo. But we appreciate your time. If you have any other questions, just let us know.